Oh, hello. We all have our holy grail items that we kind of had an opportunity to buy, or we had and sold. And one day it dawns on us that we have the power of the internet in the palm of our hand, and all we have to do is see if it's out there. Well, for me, that holy grail item is a copy of the Ratchet Clank movie from 2016 on Blu-ray. For a long time, I was looking and couldn't find it anywhere, and I wanted a brand new copy, but if I happened to find it pre-owned, I would have just went for it. Well, I was thinking of like the major retailers that you kind of shop around with, and I thought, I wonder if Walmart just happens to have like a warehouse with a box that has like a handful of these left. I checked, and they did. They had 7. I checked about a week ago, and so I pulled the trigger. I ordered the movie. I was going to watch it this weekend and make this video, but it didn't arrive. So I moseyed on over to this little website. It's great. They're not a sponsor of the video by any means, but justwatch.com is a great website to go to if you're wondering where you can watch something and find out where it's streaming, and it's updated pretty regularly, but I digress. I saw that it was streaming on Netflix for Netflix subscribers, so I decided this morning, I woke up, I made a cup of coffee, I sat down and watched the Ratchet Clank movie right there on that TV. For a little bit of back history, I was on the bus in 6th grade, and I had a friend of mine named Chris that I sat next to almost every day, and I was talking to him about how I had this game that I wasn't enjoying, and the game was Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance. And he was like, I love Mortal Kombat, let me trade you a game that I have that I don't like for your copy of Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance. So we make this swap, and keep in mind, I probably shouldn't have been playing Deadly Alliance in 6th grade, but again, I digress. I show up the next day, I have my copy of Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance, and we do a swap, and he hands me a game called Ratchet Clank. I take it home, I pop it into my PS2 that afternoon, and I play it, and I fall in love with this franchise. Very quickly, I got Going Commando, Up Your Arsenal. I think I skipped Deadlocked when I was a kid. Played Size Matters on PSP, and Tools of Destruction is one of the biggest like games of like I can remember watching the trailer religiously. I can't think of Louis Armstrong's It's a Beautiful World without thinking of Tools of Destruction. I love it. Crack in Time, great game. But anyway, I fall in love with this series, and I never met another person that enjoyed Ratchet & Clank. Even the kid on the bus that traded it to me said, I'll give you a game I don't like. I enjoyed these games completely on my own. Fast forward to 2015, I moved to Austin, Texas. I'm working at a retail store in Round Rock, and there's a movie theater directly behind this mall that I'm working at. I get out of work one day and I'm like, my birthday is April 28th. The movie came out April 26th of 2016. So it kind of felt like a little birthday present that the universe gave me, and I used the opportunity to go see it as an opportunity to treat myself, because I was kind of broke living in Austin, and I wanted to do something for my birthday, so I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna go see the Ratchet & Clank movie in theaters. I go, and I walk into this theater, and granted, I was a little early, but it's completely empty. I sit in the very back row with my popcorn and my Diet Coke, and I'm waiting for the movie to start, and I'm also waiting for the rest of the people to funnel in. Nobody comes in to the theater. I enjoyed this movie exactly how I enjoyed the games. Completely alone in solitude. Anyway, I leave the movie and I'm like, granted, I'm a little biased. I love this series. I love the characters. I love everything about it. It's really funny, really self-aware. I think that the writing in Ratchet & Clank is really underrated. I think it gets a lot of praise for the gameplay. And so to see it on screen where just the writing was given, like all of the character that Ratchet & Clank have put into a movie without the gameplay. That's what this movie, I think, did, and it's why I enjoyed it. And I watched it, I left, and I'm like, man, that was a solid movie. It wasn't like blow your socks off amazing, but it was good. It was fine. It got eviscerated performed terribly. I'm gonna look it up really quick. It released in April 2016. It's directed by Kevin Monroe and Jerica Cleland. It stars the original voice actors for Ratchet and Clank, James Arnold Taylor and David Kay, and Jim Ward as Quark, and I believe also Armin Shimmerman, who played Dr. Nefarious. Earlier this week, when this is being recorded, the first trailer for the Super Mario movie was revealed. And the biggest criticism I think people are thrusting upon that movie, at least right now, is that that Mario seems off. And I think that comes down to it being Chris Pratt's voice and not the gentleman that we know. I don't know the voice actor that plays Mario off the top of my head, but that voice actor, we associate with Mario, and because it's not there, it feels weird. And I know that there are theories that it's an isekai, which is kind of like, Chris Pratt is existing in the real world and becomes Mario when he's teleported to the Mushroom Kingdom. Is kind of the vibe that this seems to be going for. So maybe contextually that will end up making sense, but I think it's something that Ratchet and Clank, the movie, should be celebrated for, because they also they took the thing where they knew they needed a star to make the movie appealing, but they didn't want to strip it of its characters. So they gave this movie the original voice cast for the characters that were consequential, but some of the other ones, like Chairman Drek was played by Paul Giamatti, Ratchet's mentor is played by John Goodman, the big bad, kind of like the muscle for the villains, is played by Sylvester Stallone. It's got Bella Thorne and Rosario Dawson. They knew that they had to put stars in this, but they let it retain some of its character by having the original voice actors for the beloved characters. And I think that that's something that, in light of what we're seeing with the Super Mario movie, this seems to be a great method. I mean, it's not like the Sonic the Hedgehog movie where they got, I believe it's Benjamin Schwartz, to play Sonic instead of getting Jaleel White, the guy that played Steve Urkel and played Sonic in the cartoon. When there's a voice that is so intrinsically connected to a character, I don't think we think of Sonic the Hedgehog's voice too much, but Ratchet and Clank is a very character-driven game, also gameplay to be fair, but character-driven comedic game, and to have taken that out would have been, I don't know, it would have been odd. But that kind of brings me to the pros of this movie, and I think that it stays true to the source material. The style of comedy, the self-awareness translates really well, and I think having TJ Fixman involved in the writing in this movie was instrumental in making sure that was there and had its finger on the pulse of what actually made Ratchet and Clank special. Another pro that I've observed when I was watching this movie is that I think it is when a good video game movie adaptation comes out, or a TV show adaptation comes out, what makes them great? It's that they're animated. I think that's the first thing. I don't think there's too many live action adaptations of video game properties that have come out where the end result is praised and lauded. But then you look at something like the Castlevania anime, and you look at what is happening with Cyberpunk Edge Runners, and it's okay, animation seems to be the way to go with this stuff. And, I think you see some of the blending with Sonic the Hedgehog, where it's okay, this can be done. I think Sonic kind of took that to where it was going to be. I have skepticism about how that's going to go down in the Mario movie, but the Mario movie seems almost fully computer generated, so maybe we'll have to be patient and see how that pans out. But I think that the Ratchet and Clank movie, it has good pacing. I would say that the story is a bit on the simple side. Ratchet wants to join the Space Cadets. He aspires to be bigger than what seems to be his lot in life. It almost feels very Luke Skywalker. He wants to go off and do these great big things. And he just doesn't, he's waiting for his lucky break, and it just happens to crash land on his doorstep when Clank escapes in a ship that gets damaged, and it crash lands on planet Velden, and they go off and try to save the world, essentially, or save the galaxy rather. And it's simple in its premise, and it executes on all the beats, and the entire way is just full of charm and charisma and that self-awareness that makes Ratchet and Clank great. And it's often in ways that I think sometimes self-awareness can go a little too, or it can be a little too heavy-handed, and I think that Ratchet and Clank has always had self-aware comedy laced throughout it very elegantly. I think Ratchet and Clank has always done that very well. There's two complaints I have with the Ratchet and Clank movie. It's one, that it ends on a cliffhanger ending, and it's just unfortunate that, you know, if this movie was a success, it would have probably been continued. But I think the major complaint is that why not just play the game? And I think that's like really fair criticism, to be fair. I think that in the world of video games and video game movie adaptations, and vice versa, it's usually movies really good, video game tie-in, terrible. Video game is good, movie for it is terrible. Hardly ever do those two things manage to be pulled off well. And I think that for once, the video game based on the movie is better. However, the movie is still pretty good. And I think Ratchet and Clank 2016 and the Ratchet and Clank movie managed to accomplish that, and I don't think they get enough credit for it. If you asked me, would you rather rewatch the movie or play the game? I'd go, how much time do I have? You know, do I want to sit down and get a little dose of Ratchet and Clank to remind me why I love it? Or do I want to dive into the game, go for the platinum trophy, and really explore it and live in it and upgrade the weapons and flip around and, you know, just bash crates and feel that good feeling and have the jokes that play off of the gameplay? And, you know, I think the game, no matter what, it's kind of the thing I keep thinking when I see these video game movie adaptations or the TV shows even, like who is this for? You know, because people always throw out this is going to sell more games. People are going to see this and they're going to go buy more games. But that kind of goes against why I think you would make it in the first place. You're making this movie based on these video games for the people that aren't going to play the game. You know, a fraction of the audience that goes, you know what, I'm going to give this game a shot. Maybe they already play games, but they never played, like, look at The Last of Us. A lot of people may be like, yeah, I play video games, and I may even have a PlayStation, but I don't play The Last of Us. I've never played that before. And then they see the HBO show, and they go, oh man, you know what, I might check out that video game. But I think that audience is really small. I think what they're really going for is the broader audience. Unfortunately, it always gets put out there that they're doing these tie-ins because it sells more games, and I know that the math shows that, but I think the audience that they're hoping that these movies and TV shows land with are the people that don't play video games. They watch movies and they watch TV shows. Because if you're aiming at gamers, I think gamers are more likely to play the game than they are to watch the movie. And I think that what Ratchet and Clank is perfect for is if you have a child that, you know, maybe they don't fully grasp the concept of joysticks and navigating a 3D world. I mean, most human beings can't operate in the 3D world that is existence, but I think there's a line that a kid crosses where they're able to conceptualize what a video game is, and before they're ready for that, this movie is perfect for them. And I would say it has enough of those little quips to get a chuckle out of a parent that has to sit through it. And that would probably be another criticism of this, is that I think that there are movies now, and even before then, that an adult could have gotten enjoyment out of if, you know, they were forced to watch it with their kid. Like, I think something like Finding Nemo, which came out way before this movie, is way more successful in being for general audiences, and Ratchet and Clank is still good in that regard, and I think an adult would get those chuckles and be kind of like, oh man, I see what this is doing, this is kind of cool and clever. You know, I think that some of the jokes respect the audience and don't treat them like babies and use words that are kind of above like a third grade reading level. So even though it's aimed at children, it's gonna respect the audience and still throw that in there and maybe hope that they learn something along the way. And I think that's pretty cool. Overall, I think that the movie is completely underrated, and that it has like the Rotten Tomato score is 21%, which is criminal. This movie is not that bad by any means. You know, that's really unfair. And the audience score is a 42, which is better, but it's below average. Like a lot below average. In every school in America, a 42 is a failing grade. And I don't think this movie fails at what it sets out to do, outside of maybe inspiring a sequel, or getting enough money back to fund a sequel, and also larger PlayStation style movies, which we'll get to. And then it's funny, Metacritic also, which is similar to Rotten Tomatoes, is a aggregate site for reviews, but for video games, they reviewed this and gave it a 29, which is just, I think, completely false. In terms of like the animation, I would say the animation's a little basic. It seems like a straight to DVD animated movie that has way better writing and all of these things, where they kind of thought maybe it'll do all right. Maybe the video game following has enough cachet to bring people in, and then people will get there and go, oh, the writing is really good, and they'll look over some of the simplistic animation, or not even animation, it's like simplistic textures. Like, it's odd. I feel that while I was watching it, I know I've played Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, but I thought, man, I feel like the game looks better than this. I know I keep stumbling across new criticisms, but I think that it's definitely a downside, is that the textures and everything seem a little bland, based on things I kind of remember coming out around that time. Like, I even think Finding Nemo looks better. You know, Shrek probably looks worse, but you know, that's a weird way of kind of looking at it. But Kevin Munro, the director, also made, here, I actually have this on Blu-ray, so I'll pull it out, the TMNT movie. I'm trying to get that so it's not blurry. Yeah, the TMNT movie. It's a good movie, but I've seen it on the internet having this weird resurgence where people are kind of, it's almost like a little bit of revisionist history, where they're saying that this movie, the TMNT movie, is better than it was given credit for, and that it's better than like Michael Bay's movies, which I think I agree with. But, you know, Kevin Munro did the TMNT movie, I think did a couple of other things, then did the Ratchet and Clank movie, and he was set to do the Sly Cooper movie, which, if you're watching this video, I find it hard to believe you haven't seen the Sly Cooper movie trailer. That trailer, like, we've all sat and gone, why didn't they make that? What happened to that? You didn't go see Ratchet and Clank. I went and saw it. I should have bought it on Blu-ray at the time, but one sale wouldn't matter. I got it now. Forget it. But I think, you know, people didn't support this movie, and to paint a picture, this movie had a budget of $20 million, and its box office sales were $14.4 million. So it lost $5.6 million. That is a pretty colossal failure. That's over a quarter of the budget. When we kind of think, why didn't that Sly Cooper movie ever come out, or why didn't the TV show ever come out? It's because we didn't support this movie, and it's not that bad. And for some reason, it got dragged terribly. And I think, you know, I rewatched it, and I went back because I had a little bit of a break where I kind of prepped to do this and got breakfast and everything. And while I was waiting to kind of have another moment to record, I put the movie back on, and I was watching it just to reaffirm some stuff. And I'm sitting there going, this movie is good. It's not great, you know, it's not blow you away great, but it's good. And it's really funny. And one thing Ratchet and Clank has always done really well is be cheeky. It's nuanced, and there's innuendo kind of thrown in, and it's, if you know, you know. It's like the things we all think back about, like SpongeBob, and kind of go, wow, they were really kind of going for it, but we had no idea. Ratchet and Clank has always been great about going for it, but being clever enough to disguise what they're saying. And I think this movie does that incredibly well. And I'm sure, you know, I haven't watched too many animated movies as of late, but I feel like that is something that is special, and it lives in this movie and I wish people would give it more of a chance. And I'm almost glad that the movie didn't show up on Blu-ray, because it made me realize that it was on Netflix, and I feel like I could recommend to most anyone out there that's watching this, if you have a Netflix subscription, throw it on. Just put it on. It's an hour and a half, and if you do that, come back to this video, leave a comment, let me know what you thought, because I just think this movie's criminally underrated and kind of felt called to make this. It's a good movie, and I hope that Kevin Monroe is out there still making film and has a passion for it, or doing something, because I believe he was an animator on Hey Arnold. I think a lot of us, whether we know it or not, love Kevin Monroe's work, and I think he jumped into movies and something just, something happened where it didn't pan out the way, like either people weren't going to the theaters, these things weren't marketed correctly. I don't know what it is, but Kevin Monroe, I respect you, I respect your work, and I think you're criminally underrated, and the Ratchet and Clank movie is criminally underrated. TMNT is criminally underrated, and what was the other movie? Oh, Sly Cooper should have been made. Sly Cooper should have been made. It's a shame that people didn't support this, and I feel like there's going to be a little bit of revisionist history about the Ratchet and Clank movie soon. Maybe I can be like the arbiter for that in some way, but I don't even know if I just used the word arbiter correctly. But if you like Ratchet and Clank, and you like videos about video games and retrospectives and reviews and stuff like that, subscribe to the channel. I've taken a bit of a break. I was kind of burning myself out on the whole process of making videos the way that I was making them, and kind of wanted to do something like this, but I think I was dealing with a little bit of self-doubt of thinking that I could just flip a camera on and people would all care about me just kind of like giving myself bullet points and kind of going off. But I think with a little bit of distance in that break I took, I came to the conclusion of like, have fun doing this. Don't make it a chore for yourself. And the way to most have fun is to play a video game or watch a video game movie or something rooted in video games. Feel passionate about it, do a little bit of research, and sit down and kind of talk about it and just kind of hash that out and chop it up and edit it and put it up. And so if I'm happy with this could be the format that I go forward with my videos. And if I feel like making more documentary style stuff like I kind of was in the past, and maybe raising the bar a little bit, that'll be something I'll do when I feel called to do it. I think that's kind of like the big thing is, if I feel called to do it, I'm gonna do it. So if you like this video, give it a like. If you didn't, thumb it down or leave a comment, something. If you enjoy this content, like I said earlier, subscribe to the channel. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Hitbox Detective. And if you enjoy reading reviews and other video game related content, head over to lordsofgaming.net. That is where I write. Recently, I had my review for the Diofield Chronicle go live. I reviewed The Last of Us Part 1, and there's a lot of great writers over there doing great work for the love of the game. That's what we're in it for. I can't speak for everyone in that regard, but that's the essence I get, and that's what I love about being a part of their team. So if you're looking for a games outlet that is like that, Lords of Gaming is the spot for you. So yeah, check them out, follow me on socials, subscribe to the Twitter, go watch the Ratchet and Clank movie. It's better than it has any right to be, given the time. And yes, this is an Omni wrench that I've had for quite some time. It was like a Halloween costume prop, but yeah. I'll see you next time, and remember, lead with love and stay hydrated. Thank you. Peace.